AIM, Iceland and Canadian venture exchange listed Amaroq Minerals has been on the move right the way throughout last year. It's a really good result actually last year in terms of share price. It's recently raised £44 million to push ahead with its plan to produce gold later on this year. Elder Olofsson is the founder and chief executive of Amaroq Minerals, and he holds a 2.75% stake in the company. Elder, welcome. We spoke last year. You explained briefly what it was you were doing and talk a little bit about what was going to happen in the next year or so. And you were talking then about a possible start of production for gold in 2 years' time. Here we are now. It seems like things are on track. Just before we talk about the £44 million fundraise and where the company is, just explain what's been happening over last year to give us these good returns.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Jeremy, for having me. So just to kind of the essence of the business for Amaroq, or the strategy for Amaroq, is to have a producing mine in Greenland. Producing mine, not any producing mine, but extremely high-grade gold mine that could generate good cash flow. And we want to use that for twofold purposes. That is, on the one hand, to generate the cash flow, we want to generate the cash flow so we can actually utilize that cash flow to find and discover world-class deposits in strategic minerals and in gold. But more importantly, it also gives us an operating base. And our operating base in Greenland is extremely important because Greenland is not very accessible like the UK or Iceland or Denmark or anything like that. So you need to have a certain amount of operatorship to be able to build and develop deposits. And what we have achieved in the past 8 years in Greenland is, on the one hand, to acquire the rights of the mineral rights in South Greenland. We've achieved funding. We achieved the path to get to cash flow, and we've achieved exploration program or delivered exploration program in various minerals over the past 2 years, which has set us apart from other operators within the industry which we are operating in.
Yeah, we're talking here mainly, I know, about the Nalunak gold mine, which, as I said, you hope to bring back into production later on this year. Explain more specifically about what's going on there as your prime flagship project, and tell us what's between us now here and production later on in 2024.
Yeah, certainly. So the kind of a first time when we took over the Nalunak asset, this is a past producing mine, more than $200 million invested by previous operators. So you have more than 20 kilometers of mine workings, you have a long road and harbor, all of these things are in place. So what the key focus for us was to identify and understand the scale of the deposit, right? And we had to do that with various sampling and drilling and de-risking the whole asset in relation to how we would do technical studies, how we would build things, etc., etc. And that's what we've been doing in the past few years. We're now in the stage where we have started underground development, or we effectively brought on a mining contractor to rehabilitate the mine, and we are about to start underground mine development or mining. We are also brought on a contractor to build a processing plant on site. That means that towards the end of this year, we will be producing gold bars on site. And then we built up a team on site to support both of these two activities, so the mining and the processing plant. So you need a full camp, you need harbors, you need logistical team, you need the shop on site, all of these different things to support it. So we are now quite well advanced. So all of the engineering is done, all of the contracts are done. We're very well advanced in mining, and now we're building the processing plant as we speak. We bought all of the processing plant equipment, which is then will be moved into the plant. And so this is all happening as we speak, and we've been progressing really well on this path.
In addition to Nalunak, you also have some strategic metals, copper, I know, and rare earths. How important are these? As I said, the Nalunak is your flagship project. How important are these other assets compared to your gold potential gold production?
The gold production itself, to your point, can grow dramatically in terms of resources and in production. So that had on its own will deliver very good returns for shareholders, we believe. However, the other assets that we have in the portfolio are, to your point, gold, copper, nickel, rare earths. And the reason why they're so exciting for us to explore and develop is that Greenland hasn't been mined. It is one of these countries which, due to the remoteness of it and due to cost in the previous time, people haven't really started mining there or exploring. So it's untouched. And that's the reason why we have an interesting strategy where you have cash flow and you're drilling 4 to 6 sites every year, is due to the fact that in these area you can have the potential to find elephants or world-class deposits. And that's what we're targeting. But to do all of that, you need capital, but you also need an operatorship. And that's something we have built now. So far, we have now drilled 5 assets, copper. We drilled we delivered effectively an idea and backed that up with the result of a whole copper belt within South Greenland, which we call the Sava Copper Belt. We have done rare earth exploration over our assets in Pattersook and in Nunavut. And then we've also done nickel, copper, cobalt exploration work, which is due very soon within our licenses. And so I know this is a lot to take in, but that's what Greenland has to offer. We can actually leverage our fixed cost there to explore and define world-class deposit of high-grade nature close to surface, which is unlike anything you can find in the world today.
I mean, I take your point about geographically Greenland is very exciting, but the market that you've just explained are well supplied already by China and Russia. Now, I know there are geopolitical issues surrounding exports from those two countries. In fact, I guess that plays quite nicely into your portfolio of assets, seeing Russian supply taken out of these areas. I guess it does nothing but to help you in your quest to start delivering. How important is it, do you think, for the world to ensure we have a supply of these rare earths and strategic minerals outside of Russia in particular, and possibly also China?
I think just on a general level, Jeremy, even before we go into geopolitics of the world, then I think with a lack of exploration, a lack of capital spent in the mining sector, we are in this position right now and in going forward into the future where there isn't enough supply of minerals. There isn't enough supply to support the green revolution we want to go into. But maybe to your point, what companies are now understanding and experiencing is that wherever you get the minerals, you need to make sure that the mines are done in a way that are at the highest standard environmentally. We take into account all of the social aspects we're working on. We think about how we invest for the long term in country. That means, what are we going to deliver for the country other than, I'm then not talking about any grants or anything like that. I'm talking about the infrastructure. I'm talking about other things that companies can do that is beneficial for the company when they're operating it and for the community. So there are these things you have to take into account. And what is companies, it can be a windmill manufacturer, it can be a car manufacturer. You need to then take stock and understand where am I gonna get these minerals? And then overlaying on top of that, then you have this geopolitical tension where these minerals are all coming from and what the effect that is having. And that just has an even greater pressure on the whole economy. But both of these things need to be taken into account.
Yeah,
and what I would say is that commodity prices, they're known for going up and down, up and down, up and down. And I think that is quite interesting for investors of Amaroq, is that we are not a gold company or a nickel company or a rare earth. We actually develop these assets as a menu. And therefore, we are obviously thinking about building these mines over the next 10, 15 years, right? And exploring and building. This is a long-term thing. And therefore, we can give people access and exposure to Greenland, to all of these minerals, and effectively exposure to gold, critical minerals, and energy in Greenland.
Let me bring up a share price chart, something you'll be very familiar with, although obviously have no control over. But I've drawn here the share price chart here going back to 2020. And in fact, between these two red lines here is last year's gain, as I said, it was around about 50%. 50% in terms of share price. Since then, we're up almost 20% or getting towards that. Now, towards the right-hand side of this, we see this latest uptick. I guess part of that was the fact that you successfully got away this £44 million fundraise. Just remind us what the money is going to be used for. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of money to be spent before production comes through in gold. Are you now fully funded to production in the gold market? Where's the 44 million going?
Yeah, so we were before we took on the 44 million in equity raise, successful equity raise, we were fully funded. However, with the success we've had in the past year, finding more and more gold within Nalunaq, finding more and more strategic minerals and so on, we can actually grow quicker. Okay, let me explain how that works. In Greenland, our normal cost in operating anything, if it's an exploration program or a producing mine, fixed costs are about 70 to 80% of our cost. So the more throughput or more drilling we can do once we have de-risked this asset with exploration, it generates better returns for both our investors and for the community. So that's what we're doing. We are fast tracking both production in Nalunaq, so make more throughput happen earlier. We are increasing recoveries in Nalunaq, building bigger part of the plant. And then we are also drilling more on the assets that we've already defined, copper, nickel, whatever that might be, so we can increase the metal and the cash flow. Those are the two elements that increases the most of the value for our shareholders. And that's what we're utilizing the capital for.
Yeah. Let's just take another quick look at what's in your in-tray. What's a priority now for you to move ahead? What is it that is taking up your time at the moment?
I mean, one, two, and three, we are building the mine there, and we are dealing with everything like a normal mining company has to do when it's dealing with being our social studies or environmental impact studies that are now finished, and we have been doing all of the mining and various technical things about that. So that's taking all of our time and focus. Then we're planning our exploration season as we speak as right now. So it's all about delivery of what we promised investors so far this year, which is going to happen this next summer, and adding more and more value through those things. So those are the key items that we are focused at the moment. So we are then in the position to generate cash flow from next year.
Just one final question, if I can, to step aside from the balance sheet, the profit and loss, the company, and talk a little bit about the negotiation of this UK Greenland free trade agreement. I noticed in the notes that when we were preparing for the interview that this was an aspect of life that you are conscious of. How good is this going to be for both countries? What's going to happen out of this?
I mean, I think it's going to be hugely beneficial for UK and Greenland. So let's think of it like this. What are the main industries in Greenland? You have infrastructure and energy that you need to build up for the country. You have fisheries. You have then mining, which is going to be the largest one, right? And then possibly once these other three things have been built, you can have tourism and these things. This is a mimic of what you have in Iceland, where I live and where I come from, right? And if you look at what UK can do in their focus, especially if we focus on critical minerals, UK has an ambition to process minerals. It has an ambition to build battery-powered cars, all of these different things that we have there. But the source of the mineral is not there for UK at the moment. Well, it is, but it is in different countries with different jurisdiction, risk, etc., etc. Whereas if Greenland and UK can work together through a free trade agreement and even through investment agreement, etc., I think it's going to be hugely beneficial for UK, especially for its industries, for the supply of metal, etc., etc. So that in its own, I think, is important. And on the Greenland side, if UK market can get behind Greenland, invest in Greenland, look at that as a jurisdiction that is, their main focus, then I think that in itself will be very, very beneficial for Greenland in its own merits.
Yeah, fascinating as we go into an election year here in the UK. But Eldur, we'll leave it there. But thanks indeed for joining us. That's Eldur Olafsson, the founder and chief executive of Amaroq Minerals.